Let me read to you a passage from the 6th chapter of St. Mark's Gospel, verses 53 to 56. It's the Gospel for Monday of the 5th week in Ordinary Time. St. Mark writes, "When Jesus and his disciples had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched him were healed." That's from Mark chapter 6, verses 53 to 56. It speaks of God's power. What do I mean? Well, let me begin this way. You know, there are various views on the meaning of the traditional religion of the Australian Aborigines. And it is a brave or even foolhardy man who presumes to pronounce firmly on it. It is manifest, though, that the dreaming, as it is commonly called, is fundamental. It is largely a religion of the dreaming. That is to say, it involves an evocation of the dream time, and through song and ritual, also a process of making that present. The dream time is the original coming to be of the world of the tribe and the clan, with its pulsating life and fertility, imparting to the world all that sustains life and happiness. To evoke the dream time is to make present once again something of that great original impulse, and to ensure the active presence of what the family, the clan, the tribe or the people need for life and happiness. It renews life, and by drawing on the power of the dreaming, vulnerable man is sustained and enabled to flourish. Well, it is obvious that elements of this religious approach can be harmonized with a sacramental religion, which is what, for instance, the Catholic religion is. But one thing about it is obvious, and that is the effort of man, in this case the traditional Australian Aborigine, to gain access to a greater and higher power. Man needs contact with real power that will meet the needs of his weakness and liability to destruction. Across the spectrum of primal religions, we see this seeking to befriend and win over the unseen powers that can control the adverse forces of the world. There are other aspects of this in many traditional religions, such as the sense of guilt. In many cases, the adverse conditions and threats which the religion in question seeks to remedy are perceived as punishments for offences against the deities. Well, be all this as it may, the general point I wish to make here is that the religions of man manifest his profound need for help from above. He needs the help, the constant help of higher and greater powers. He needs access to a power which is friendly to him. His religion is very much an expression of this, while being other things too. And how great is the excitement when this kindly power is discovered to be present among men. It is under this aspect that God entered the life of Moses and directed him to lead his people out of the land of slavery to the promised land. We read in Exodus chapter 2 that Moses was tending the flock of Jethro when he saw the bush which, though on fire, was not consumed. And there he heard the voice of the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, who said, and I quote, that I have witnessed the afflictions of my people in Egypt and have heard their cry of complaint. Therefore I have come down to rescue them from the hands of the Egyptians and lead them out of that land to a good and spacious land. God presents himself as all-powerful and friendly to his people. This is exactly what man needs, and it is what he is ever seeking. It is exactly what the people believed they had found in Jesus of Nazareth in our gospel today that I read earlier. He was friendly, he loved them, and he was full of power in their regard. We read that, and I quote, "As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was." There was nothing menacing about Jesus Christ, at least to those who recognized their need. People ran to him. They did not ask whether he was tired or needed some peace and quiet with his disciples. They did not consult for a minute about his convenience. They did not ask whether they were in such a state as to be pleasing to him. They certainly did not reflect on whether he would be angry or irritated with them, and the anger of the gods was usually a significant issue in the religions of man. They simply ran to Jesus Christ with their needs. He had the fullness of power. He was holy, and they knew he was very friendly, kind and compassionate. God was present in him somehow, and so they ran to him. Therefore, we read, wherever he went, into villages, towns or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched him were healed. The one Almighty God was accessible to them through this man Jesus Christ. They had yet to learn that he himself was this one Almighty God become man. The first thing we generally think of when we think of God is his power. The God of historical revelation has revealed himself to be infinite in his power. Indeed, this may be a unique feature of revealed religion. I'm not sure that there is any other religion which teaches that the power of its deity is infinite. This one God had the power even to become a vulnerable man. He had the power to take away the sin of the world, and he did it by atoning for it as a victim for our sake. God can do all things. Most of all, he can and wants to redeem and sanctify us so that we can be with him forever in heaven. Let us rely on the power and grace of God then, and see in Jesus Christ our all. As St. Paul writes, "This is the mystery now revealed, Christ in you, your hope of glory."